In a sunlit studio overlooking the city skyline, a woman stands before the camera, poised, calm, radiant. Her name is Dr. Suham, and the lens seems to recognize her as an old friend. She's not merely a model. She's not just a counselor. She's a mirror for a generation learning to see itself anew. Her journey begins not in front of bright lights, but in the quiet spaces of self-doubt. Years ago, Suham was just another woman scrolling through perfect pictures, images of symmetry and flawlessness that whispered lies about beauty. She remembered pausing once, holding her breath at a caption that said, "You are enough." It sounded poetic, but she didn't believe it then. Growing up in a society where women were taught to be small, in words, in dreams, in shape, she had always felt like her body was a negotiation. Every compliment carried a shadow. Every gaze was a test. But Suham had something most didn't: a questioning spirit and a refusal to disappear quietly. She studied psychology, fascinated by the way humans built their identities through validation and fear. Later, her curiosity deepened into relationship counseling because she wanted to understand not just the self, but how the self survives in love. Her academic path earned her the title doctor, not from vanity, but as a badge of persistence. For her, that title wasn't about hierarchy, it was about healing. When she began creating content online, it wasn't part of some grand plan. She recorded her first video on an old phone, her voice trembling slightly as she said, "You don't need to shrink to be loved." That single line, just 8 words, became the seed of something larger. Within days, her message spread like wildfire. Women wrote to her telling her that it made them cry, that it felt like she had spoken directly into their hidden shame. Men wrote too, admitting that they never realized how fragile beauty standards could make their partners feel. Suham realized that the internet, often mocked for its vanity, could be a sanctuary for truth. Her following grew organically. She didn't chase trends, she created conversations. One week, she'd discuss emotional boundaries. The next, she'd post a reel wearing a vibrant dress saying, "This body tells a story. Every curve, every mark." Her audience didn't just watch her, they grew with her. Behind the screen, though, life wasn't always glamorous. There were nights when she doubted herself, when hate comments slipped through her armor, when people said she was too confident, too loud, or too different. But for every voice that tried to silence her, there were 100 thanking her for speaking up. She learned to balance the roles, the counselor and the creator, the doctor and the dreamer. In therapy sessions, she would listen to couples unravel the knots of their communication, guiding them to rediscover empathy. On social media, she translated those lessons into simple language, teaching millions that love wasn't about perfection, but understanding. One of her most viral videos began with her sitting in front of a mirror, speaking softly. When you look at yourself, don't search for flaws. Search for evidence that you've survived. That video reached millions. It wasn't just beauty advice. It was a manifesto for healing. Soon, invitations began arriving. Panels, workshops, brand collaborations. Magazines wanted to feature her not because she fit the mold, but because she broke it. She partnered with inclusive fashion labels, advocating that beauty should not come in sizes, but in stories. Yet fame never changed her rhythm. Every morning, before the emails and the lights, she would journal, a ritual she called anchoring. On the page, she wrote not about goals, but about gratitude. She once wrote in her journal, "I'm thankful for the softness that society tried to erase." Her brand, Suham Speaks, became more than a platform. It became a movement. Thousands of followers began tagging her in transformation stories. Women wearing clothes they once feared, couples rebuilding trust after years of silence, teenagers speaking about self-worth in schools. She often said, "Confidence is not the absence of insecurity, it's the decision to live anyway." Still, Suham remained human, grounded, humble, occasionally exhausted. Her success wasn't built overnight. It was built on nights she almost gave up. The loneliness of leadership, the scrutiny of public life, the endless need to stay on. All of it weighed on her. But she believed that vulnerability wasn't weakness. She turned her pain into purpose. Her background in psychology allowed her to blend emotional intelligence with creativity. She knew how to connect, not just visually, but emotionally. Every caption she wrote carried empathy. Every video carried a story. In one video that resonated deeply, she said, "If your partner doesn't see you when you shine, maybe they're not afraid of your light, maybe they've just forgotten their own." That quote was shared across continents. Relationship pages reposted it. Counselors referenced it in workshops. It became her signature. Poetic, reflective, powerful. As her platform expanded, so did her mission. She founded a small initiative called The Warm Space, a community hub, both online and offline, where people could attend workshops on self-awareness, emotional healing, and body positivity. She didn't want followers. She wanted a family. The Warm Space became more than just an idea. It became a living, breathing reflection of Dr. Suham's vision. It began humbly. A few chairs in a quiet studio, soft lighting, and handwritten affirmations taped to the wall. But it grew into something far bigger. An international network of people who came together to unlearn shame and rediscover love. Every session opened with the same words. "You are safe here. You don't have to impress anyone to belong." People came from all walks of life. Young women struggling with self-image, newlyweds navigating early misunderstandings, mothers trying to heal from burnout, men wanting to communicate better with their partners. Some came in silence. Others came with tears. Suham listened to all of them with a patience that felt almost sacred. When she spoke, she didn't lecture, she conversed. What if we stopped asking how to be loved and started asking how to be real? Her philosophy wasn't about rebellion, it was about reclamation, reclaiming the right to exist fully, to speak freely, to feel without apology. The digital world took notice. Articles began calling her the voice of emotional intelligence for the Instagram generation. Critics admired her blend of psychology and poetry. She refused to conform to influencer stereotypes. She never exaggerated, never promoted false cures, never traded authenticity for algorithms. But as her platform expanded, so did her scrutiny. There were moments when the world seemed to forget she was human. Online debates about body image became personal attacks. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. People projected their insecurities onto her. Some admired her courage, others resented her confidence. One evening, after a particularly harsh wave of criticism, Suham closed her laptop, took off her makeup, and looked at her reflection. Her eyes were tired, but her spirit was unbroken. She whispered to herself, "Let them talk. The truth doesn't need approval." That night became a turning point. She decided to stop defending herself and start deepening her message. The next day, she posted a video, no filters, no edits, just her voice. Confidence isn't loud, it's quiet endurance. It's waking up every day and choosing not to disappear. That video went viral, again, but this time it wasn't because of aesthetics, it was because of authenticity. Thousands of people reposted it, tagging her with words like strength, truth, and healing. Over time, Dr. Suham became not only an influencer, but a mentor to many rising creators. She guided them through the same emotional landscape she once stumbled through herself,
teaching them how to use their platforms responsibly, how to protect their mental health, how to speak from a place of purpose rather than performance. She often said, "The algorithm doesn't control you, your truth does." Her collaborations shifted from commercial partnerships to social impact projects. She started working with local organizations to bring relationship education into schools and community centers. Her workshops emphasized empathy, listening, and the psychology of respect, lessons often missing from traditional curriculums. When asked why she chose to focus on relationships, she smiled softly, "Because every social problem begins when people forget how to love each other properly." Her message wasn't limited to romance. She spoke about friendship, family, and self-connection. In one of her most powerful talks, she said, "Before you ask for love, ask."
Her rise to global recognition wasn't without sacrifice. The more people she reached, the more energy it took to stay grounded. Fame, even when earned, can be isolating. There were evenings when she returned to hotel rooms after long conferences, staring at the ceiling, wondering if anyone truly saw her beyond the message. One night, after a speech in Paris, she sat alone in her hotel room and recorded a voice note to herself. "Dear Suham, you don't owe the world perfection. You owe it presence. Just show up. That's enough." That message, never meant for the public, later became part of her second book, The Courage to Stay Soft. If the first book was about unlearning shame, the second was about reclaiming gentleness, a declaration that sensitivity was not weakness, but strength in its most honest form. As the years passed, Suham's brand evolved beyond her personal image. She founded the Suham Foundation, dedicated to providing free counseling and emotional education for underprivileged communities. The foundation trained volunteers to hold safe spaces, both online and in person, where people could talk without fear of stigma. She didn't want her success to live only in curated feeds. She wanted it to touch reality. Her foundation launched programs like Hearts That Listen for teens struggling with communication and identity, the Gentle Marriage Project for couples seeking emotional literacy, the Mirror Movement, a global campaign encouraging people to share one thing they love about their reflection. Each initiative reflected her life philosophy: healing begins when honesty feels safe. Media houses began calling her the architect of modern empathy. She didn't chase that title, but she accepted it gracefully. Through it all, she remained fiercely private about her personal life. People speculated about her relationships, but she never confirmed anything. Her silence was not secrecy, it was protection. She once said, "Some parts of you deserve to exist without an audience." That sentence alone became a viral quote, proof that even in a world obsessed with oversharing, there was dignity in mystery. At the height of her career, Suham took a bold turn. She stepped away from the spotlight for an entire year. No posts, no interviews, no events. Her team released a short statement. Dr. Suham is taking time to write and reflect. The internet buzzed with speculation. Was she okay? Had she retired? Was there a scandal? But in truth, she was simply resting. She moved to a quiet coastal town, rented a small cottage by the water, and began writing in longhand. She cooked her own meals, watched the sunrise daily, and talked to almost no one. It was a year of solitude, but not loneliness. In her journal, she wrote, "I used to chase relevance. Now I chase peace." When she returned, her audience didn't greet her with questions, they greeted her with gratitude. Her first video back began with just one sentence: "I missed you, but I missed myself more." That video broke records. Her comeback wasn't traumatic, it was graceful, human, raw. She looked different, calmer, more radiant in simplicity. It was as if she had peeled off every layer that wasn't essential. In her first live stream after the break, she said, "We think we need to be seen to exist, but sometimes you need to disappear to remember who you are." Those who watched her speak that day said it felt like being in church, sacred, quiet, transformative. After her return, she no longer chased virality. She focused on depth. Her videos became slower, her captions longer, her audience more reflective. She began blending her counseling expertise with spiritual psychology, exploring how forgiveness, grief, and self-worth connect to the soul. In a powerful session, she said, "Healing doesn't mean you stop hurting. It means the pain no longer runs your life." That line became the opening of her third and most personal book, The Weight of Wings. It chronicled her transformation from insecurity to influence, from overexposure to inner peace. The book was written as a series of conversations between her and her younger self, vulnerable, poetic, and raw. Critics called it a manual for emotional rebirth. Readers called it the book that makes you breathe again. Through her writing and speaking, Suham had become more than an influencer or expert. She was now a cultural voice, bridging the gap between psychology, spirituality, and self-acceptance. When asked once in an interview what she ultimately wanted to be remembered for, she smiled and replied softly, "For helping people remember they were never broken." Years later, the name Dr. Suham became synonymous with empathy, resilience, and truth. What began as a single phone video had grown into a global movement. Across continents, classrooms, and conferences, her teachings were quoted, adapted, and lived. In Cairo, a group of young women held weekly mirror circles inspired by her work. In Dubai, relationship coaches trained using her methods of compassionate dialogue. In London, a university introduced her writings in a psychology course about self-image and communication. Her words had transcended geography. They had become universal language. When asked once in an interview how she felt about being called a movement, she smiled humbly. "Movements fade, but consciousness doesn't. What I hope I've created is awareness, not of me, but of what's possible when we stop pretending." Her humility was legendary. Despite international fame, she still managed her own social media comments sometimes, responding with short notes of encouragement. "I'm proud of you. Keep going. You're doing better than you think." People said it felt as if she truly saw them, not as an audience, but as souls. Her foundation expanded its reach into multiple languages, collaborating with therapists, educators, and artists. One of her most successful projects was Letters to the Younger Me, a mentorship program where adults wrote compassionate letters to their teenage selves, sharing lessons of forgiveness and strength. Every year, the foundation hosted a retreat in the mountains. It wasn't glamorous, no luxury hotels or paparazzi, just tents, open skies, and deep conversation. Participants described it as a week where you meet your true self. Suham attended each one, sitting by the fire, laughing, crying, listening. She never stood above anyone. She always sat among them. One evening at the retreat, a young woman approached her and asked, "Dr. Suham, do you ever get tired of being strong?" She paused for a long time, then answered, "Strength isn't the absence of exhaustion. It's the decision to rest and rise again." The young woman wept, and Suham hugged her, a simple act that would later be described by attendees as the moment the room exhaled.
As the years passed, Suham's work evolved into mentorship for younger creators. She believed that influence without ethics was empty. She taught them to build with intention, to share stories that healed, not harmed. Her workshops were called the ethics of emotion. In them, she'd say, "You can't pour from a poisoned well. Heal before you teach. Listen before you speak. Serve before you shine." Her guidance created a new generation of mindful influencers, people who valued honesty over aesthetics, purpose over perfection. Her proudest moment came when her students launched their own community platforms, tackling topics like men's emotional health, body neutrality, and relationship recovery. She often said that watching others grow was her favorite success. Meanwhile, her own journey deepened inward. She had stopped measuring achievement by numbers or reach. She now measured it by peace. Her mornings were slow, tea by the window, barefoot walks, journaling under sunlight. She had learned the rare art of contentment. In one of her later interviews, she was asked, "Dr. Suham, what is happiness to you?" She smiled gently and replied, "Happiness is when your inside world finally stops arguing with your outside world." Those words were quoted endlessly. They captured the essence of her philosophy: wholeness, not performance. As the years turned, so did the seasons of her life. She continued to write, speak, and counsel, but she also started painting. Her art was abstract, flowing shapes, curved lines, soft tones.